If you can hear me, this is Celia, and I'm going to ask a question, and that is, do you have or have you ever had an exotic, exceptional, or unusual pet? If you do, and you could write in the chat, please can you let me know what kind of creature and what its name was? I'll ask this question again shortly because I don't know how many people are there.
Celia, we currently have 7 of our participants in already. And
Wow.
I'll add that I have had green tree frogs for the last 15 years called Frederick and Fredo. I wonder if anyone else has had frogs.
Frogs sound pretty well different from what we'd normally expect. But I had a friend with a pet frog, and it was a tree frog too, a green tree frog. I'm just going to get a pen. I'm going to write down frogs.
We've got John has looked after stick insects for some
Oh,
friends,
wow.
and
How
Lucy had a guinea pig called Rosie.
guinea pig called Rusty. I wonder
Rosie.
what colour that was. Okay. I can't see anything in the chat, so I presume that's something you have.
Yes, it's popping up on my end. Andrea has 5 guinea pigs.
Oh, all right. Yes, I'm seeing them now. Hang on, I might just click that one off and keep this one on. All right. Guinea pig Rosie, 5 guinea pigs. Okay, guinea pigs are winning.
Yes, they certainly are. I didn't know they were going to be so popular. So even though we are still waiting for some more people to come, it is my pleasure to essentially launch SciFest 2024 with our first session poetry zoo. And Celia's here joining us. We've just had a blue tongue lizard pop up in the chat as well. That's another great one. So my name's Karen from Virtual Excursions Australia, and I think this is getting up to our 12th year for SciFest. So it's very exciting, a celebration for National Science Week. And we're really excited because we've got quite a few programs that are also linking up to Book Week as well. And next month is also Poetry Month. So it's a perfect opportunity to have Celia here to talk about her program that she's running called Poetry Zoo and how you can get involved in that as well. So thank you all for joining us today. And yes, I'm very excited about the program today. So I'll hand over to you. Thank you very much, Celia.
Thank you very much, Karen. Hello, everybody. I'm Celia, the Science Rhymes poet. There you go, there's my book. And some of you might have heard of me before because in every issue of the Double Helix magazine, you'll find there's a poem which I've written. And this latest one is called, sorry, Jackal's Melon Vine. Can you see that? So, Jackal's Melon Vine. It's about a foxy dog relative who they've recently discovered actually likes to eat melons. But what they do is, if they're not quite ripe enough, they pee on them. And we don't know if that's because they are trying to say, this is mine, or whether they're trying to conceal them from other jackals so that they don't find them. But that's an animal behavior discovery, recent discovery. And so that's partly science of animals, and I love learning all sorts of things about animals. I've also got poems in English language school textbooks around the world, and quite a few of them are in India. So that's my introduction to me. I love learning snippets of science that make me go, ooh, that's interesting. Or, wow, I didn't realize that happened like that. And then packing it into a short rhyming verse poem to share. And each year I invite you, actually, probably since 2015, I've been inviting people, particularly students, to share their poems too on the Science Rhymes blog, which I do as a collection of an anthology for each year for Science Week and Poetry Month, as Karen already said. So this is for Science Week, and which is the 10th to the 18th of August, and Poetry Month, which is the whole of August. So I'll be starting putting up some of the poems very soon. But most of the ones I've got so far have been from adults. Anyway, I'd like to see if there's any more people who have a pet. You can still let me know as we go through this session. And I'd like to invite you now to do three things. One is I'm going to show you or explain a little bit about how to submit your poems. Secondly, it might be possible to get AI like ChatGPT to help. And thirdly, I would like to give you some tips on editing. So that's quite a lot that I want to cover. And the best way for me to do that is to actually share a PowerPoint screen. So this is my effort at showing. We'll get to that. Okay. So here's my PowerPoint. So I hope you can all see that. Okay. Everybody all right with that? Okay. So because you have only just recently come back to school, I've extended the deadline from Monday the 29th of July till Monday the 5th of August. So there are 2 whole weekends for you to come up with your own poem for Poetry Zoo. So the topic this year is loving living things. That could be a creepy creature, a peculiar plant, your favourite pet, or something to do with being eco-friendly. Okay, so let's see, how do I move on with my PowerPoint slide? I'm going to have to find the right buttons. They're very faint at the bottom. Okay, so your mission, if you choose to accept, is to write a short rhyming verse poem about loving living things for Science Week and Poetry Month in August. And when you've done it, email your poem to me at feedback@sciencerhymes.com.au. Now, I do actually ask, as a school student, please can you either copy in or email through an adult teacher parent so that I can reply and maybe give you some feedback. So all you need to do is enter the words Science Week Poetry Zoo into a search engine and you'll see National Science Week will come up. And then in National Science Week, under events and competitions, you'll find a page called Poetry Zoo. There's a few words in there, but at the bottom of the page on the right-hand side, you'll see it also says download Loving Living Things PDF. And that's where you can find some more information. I've shared some suggestions, some guidelines, and a little bit about how to use ChatGPT. And I'll get into that very shortly. Okay, I suggested in that PDF that you could try a challenge. Instead of writing just about a creature you already love, can you find a creepy creature, peculiar plant, funny fungus, mysterious microbe, amazing animal, or just share something that's eco-friendly, something that we can all do? I've put examples for each of them in that PDF. So there's 6 poems of my own. One's about worms, another one's about fungus, You can find these on that PDF. I'm not going to recite them to you. We've got plenty of time to do other things instead. But I've got a microbe, a plant. Oh, that one, the mistletoe mischiefs, actually from my latest book, which is Christmas Time Rhymes. And so I'm quite proud of that one. That one's a bit funny. We've got an amazing animal, which is a shark. We really do diss them badly, I think. And then a being eco-friendly poem is about how the insect zappers that you see really aren't killing the right insects, and we are being quite mean by using those. Okay, so now let's go on to the next stage, because I'm hoping you've all got a little bit of information that's got your minds working and you possibly thinking about some of the things you could write about. Can AI help us write a science rhyme? And I'm sorry to say, I don't fully know if the answer's definite yes or a definite no, but I've been experimenting with ChatGPT. And so that's the one I wanted to talk about today. So using ChatGPT, I discovered basically the best way about it is to research your topic first using some reliable websites, museums, science, government, that kind of thing, rather than just social media. So when you know a little bit, it does actually make it easier to then see when the ChatGPT is a bit faulty on the information it gives you. I've said ask an adult to log you in to ChatGPT or the equivalent, because it depends how old you are and you need to be in compliant with your parents. So I'm not sure everybody's mum and dad are really on top of this and want to encourage their children. So I hope you have some pioneering people, because I've been quite inspired to offer this as an alternative to writing your own poem by yourself, because I have been learning from a man in UK. He's a science communicator called Professor Sam Illingworth, and he is putting together some books and things about how knowing how to manage this new AI will be advantageous, especially for higher education students. So bear that in mind. Practicing in a safe environment with parental help is probably a great way to go about learning it. If you write a prompt and then press the arrow on ChatGPT, I've put in write a short science poem about the curious scaly-foot snail. I thought I'll choose an animal that maybe ChatGPT doesn't know much about, because none of us do, since we've only recently discovered the scaly-foot snail. That way, when the answer comes up, I can fact check what it says to make sure it's correct. And then it's possible to actually add more information and change the prompt so that you get something more to your liking. I think it is a bit of potluck, to be quite honest, when you ask ChatGPT to write a poem. But I tried write a short science poem about the curious scaly-foot snail. And this is the answer I got, which is on the screen. And you'll see I've color-coded it. So I coloured in green the words and phrases that I liked. The purple ones are the ones that I think are not correct at all. So a scaly-foot snail lives deep in the ocean, and it does have metal in its body, which is really weird and quite unusual. But the metal it has is iron, and iron is not rare, so it's not really relevant to say metal's so rare. And it wasn't forged in the deep either, because the deep doesn't forge things, it's deep. And so those purple points to me show places where ChatGPT has just tried to put the most probable words next to each other, and it doesn't necessarily mean it's correct. The grey one, 3 layers strong, I couldn't find anything about that. So that's a total grey area. I don't think that's correct science, but I can't tell you it isn't. And I put in yellow the curious scaly foot because I thought at least it showed that it was trying to use my descriptive word. I put the descriptive word curious in there and it did use it, but I don't know. I didn't like the rest of the poem really. So I just took the green bits and put a little bit in the front that said impression depths. So if I go to the next slide, you'll see that I've put how I edited it. So those deep sea snails have, oh, this one's a different one. I wrote a different prompt, sorry. That was all I did for that one, just the one verse. So impression depths was basically all I added and the word first, and I compressed all those 4 verses into one nice verse because it is possible just to have one verse poems. And I'm quite happy to accept one verse from you if you've got something to say that will be something that's appropriate for loving living things. The second time I did a prompt, I made it longer. So I write a short poem about the curryfoot snail, which lives by the deep seas, hydrothermal vents, and is the only animal we know that includes metal in its body in the form of iron. This pangolin of the deep can even be magnetic. Start the poem with those deep sea snails have metal scales. So I've actually told it how to start the poem, and it did. Those deep sea snails have metal scales. And I was really quite proud of that one. I thought that came out quite well, except when it came to the end of the poem. They thrive in iron's gleaming array. It doesn't really nail the end of the poem, but I'd learned that people have started exploration mining really down in the depths near the hydrothermal vents. And so miners are a threat to this newly discovered creature. So I changed the last line of the poem completely. And that's what it looks like. That's the scaly foot snails. And I've narrowed that down to two verses. And I that was the only picture I could find of the pangolin. So that's what a pangolin looks like, otherwise known as a scaly anteater. And so that's where the word pangolin came in. So that is my poems. And this is a poem I wrote about the scaly-foot snail, which is going to be hopefully in a book published next year. It's called Chivalrous Charmers, and I hope you can see how much tighter it is, a poem that I've written as opposed to a ChatGPT poem. So here's Chivalrous Charmers. A magnetic shell and metal scales strangely belong to scaly-foot snails existing beside hydrothermal vents where water is hot and iron dense. Bacteria here can synthesize vents chemicals for food supplies, so scaly-foot snails will eat and protect these microbes inside their digestive tract. This big heart attracts like a microbe charmer, so snails are like farmers in shining armour. Yay! So if you want to use ChatGPT to write a science poem, in conclusion, I suggest that you research your topic first. Then you go and open up the ChatGPT platform, write your instructions, that's your prompt, and you can be bossy, it doesn't mind. you can be quite specific, and possibly the more information you put in there, the more relevant your poem will be to a science information. But it still needs to be fact checked because it's just trying to juggle with words. And you've probably heard people talking about poetic license. And that means that if you said something in a poetic way, sometimes maybe it isn't completely accurate. So there is always a little bit of poetic license in poetry, I suppose. The thing I think is quite exciting, and I'd like to show you a bit more about this a little bit later, is editing. When we write our own poetry, until we've finished it, it's not really to share. And when it is finished, you feel like you've completely finished it, and therefore nobody should touch it. And it's not always nice to be told maybe it could be improved. But that's relevant to a lot of writing projects, and editing is a very good skill to have. So I'd like to show you how I've edited a ChatGPT poem that was submitted for this poetry zoo. Anyway, I'm just going to rewind and say, email your poem to feedback@sciencerhymes.com.au. If you do take me up on my challenge, which I hope you will, if you use ChatGPT or the equivalent, please, please, please don't forget to admit to it. One of the reasons I'd like you to admit to it is not just to be honest, but because it'll be interesting to see how successful AI is at writing poetry or helping you write poetry. And I've got a series of questions. If someone submits their poem to me and it gets published, I'd like to be able to send an email back with some questions on it so that I can find out how it went using AI. It will be really interesting. I would be really interested to know. So anyway, what have I got left to tell you about? If you're going to write me a poem, please make it either 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5 verses, no more than 5. It gets a bit long after a while. And I think if you found a topic to talk about in a poem, 5 verses should be adequate amount of wording. Don't forget to copy me in with an adult, parent, teacher, email address, and don't forget to try and check your poem. If I get lots of poems and I haven't got time to give them all a very careful edit, then the ones that have got incorrect science in them that's obvious, well, then they may get put to one side. But when it was COVID, I had a wonderful year because so many people gave it a go. And we ended up with 50 beautiful poems in the anthology blog. I've got 10 so far this year, but it would be lovely to have some more. Maybe you can overwhelm me. So now, I'm going to take this away now. So I've just got to find out where to stop sharing. Just a minute. Stop share. Okay. Now, in the chat, yabbies, we've got yabbies in there now. Stick insects and yabbies. Anybody else? No, we haven't got any more special pets. But now if you think about creatures that you already know of, what is something that you maybe would like to write about? I've got one that I want to share with you that's my favorite creature, and I thought I'd just recite this poem to you, see if any of you have heard of it. When I come from England, we've got a dog. Has it got a name? When I first came from England, I was terrified of the spiders in Australia. But I eventually spent time on Lizard Island, where I met some jumping spiders that were really tiny and all stripy with black and bright metallic blues. They were really gorgeous. And then I learnt about Australia's tiny dancers, and those are what are called peacock spiders. So I wrote a poem about peacock spiders. So I hope you don't mind if I just recite this to you. Those jumping spiders Maritus surprise and dazzle all of us. It's not their 4 big puppy eyes or 8 lithe legs or furry sides. It's just their courting dancing males display 2 flaps like peacock tails with crazy patterns, coloured bright. Their snazzy tails are awesome sights. They'll wave their legs and wag those tails in dance routines of skilled details. Do spiders scare us? Not at all. Well, not this kind. Way too small. Okay, now maybe I can share another PowerPoint with you. It shows this was the first ChatGPT co-written poem that I received, and it's from a primary school student in Hong Kong. So I don't even know if English is his first language. It could be Cantonese, but possibly in English. And it came through his teacher. And I'm going to try and share it with you now and show how I edited it so you get an idea of what sort of techniques you can incorporate. So here we go. Where is it? I've lost it. That's not fair. Maybe I've got to close this one down first. Just a minute, I'll find it. Ooh. I think I've closed the wrong one. Oh, no. Yes.
While you're looking for that, everyone, please,
Yes.
if you've got any questions, put them in the Q&A, because this is a perfect opportunity to be able to pick Celia's brain about some of the other techniques that she's used as well, and also even some of the ideas you might have.
Please, yes. I've lost something in my... I will find it very soon. Editing the brown bear. Here we go. Right, back to sharing. Sorry, I'm going to find you again and do a share. Where is he? Here he is. The brown bear. Now, slideshow from the beginning. Okay, so this is my brown bear, or forest bear, sorry. And it was by Muhammad and ChatGPT. And he has a 5-verse poem that I can't read all of it because I'm in the way. Just a minute, I'll see if I can move. I can move myself. Thank you. All right, so in the forest dense, tall forest stands, brown bear walk on the lands, wandering, as in wandering through the underground, seeking his morning around. So as you can probably see, that first verse doesn't sound as though it's particularly good English, but I don't know if that's maybe because Muhammad might be English as a second language. But I gave him some edits for all these, and he was okay with them. So I first of all talked about taking out the, because a poem's rhythm sometimes works better if you remove the's. So in Forest Dense is poetic speak, if you like. And then I put in where, and then tall, and taking out the forest, put trees in there instead. So we ended up with in Forest Dense, where tall trees stand. I used the word our brown bear instead of the brown bear or just brown bear, so that it felt like we had a connection to this bear. And then instead of walk, we've ambled on the land. So sometimes there are simple words in a poem where you can actually swap them for a more specific or one that gives a better description. So some people might walk, other people might trip, skip, or trot. They're all words that kind of mean movement, but in a special, sort of more specific way. And I gave him wandering with an A instead of an O, and instead of leafy, he had underground, which I presume was meant to be sort of undergrowth, but got muddled up. So I've given it leafy ground, and seeking tasty food around instead of just his morning, because I guess that's what bears were looking for. Next one, next verse. It had hunting paws and shaggy fur. The bear's large paws rest unperturbed. And I went, oh, I like that for a way of rhyming. I would never have thought of rhyming fur and unperturbed. So I guess GPT had something to do with that. And that's quite a clever rhyme. So that stays. And then I realized berries, nuts, and bugs galore between sustaining his endless hunger. That didn't kind of make even a rhyme, even though galore and hunger just didn't quite do it for me. So I tried swapping the two lines around. And so I ended up with endless hunger makes him search for berries, nuts, and bugs galore. I was quite pleased with that. So swapping lines around is some of the sort of things you can do with editing that might improve a poem. And I think endless hunger is the main science in this poem, the whole poem. So I decided that was a good thing to keep. Next one, third verse. The dense forest he wanders on, alert for danger at dawn, smelling air for friend or foe, unaware of what the forest may show. Well, this time I decided maybe repetition with verse 1 in Forest Dense would be a nice way of keeping a pattern in the poem. And the other thing I liked about some of the words here was that we could incorporate alliteration, which is where you've got more than one word with the same sound for the word to start with. So not knowing, and then woods, what the woods may show, seemed a nice way of going about it. And I used the word sharp, alert for danger, sharp at dawn. I thought there was room for an extra word in there. And you can imagine looking around being sharp. And that kind of fitted in there. Next we have number 4. When snow comes, he finds his den, curling snow up to sleep till then. Spring returns with longer days and the brown bear's foraging ways. Well, I kind of guess what it means. So I quite liked most of it, apart from the fact that the curling snow up is sort of a bit upside down. So I took out the snow and changed the verse a little bit. When snow comes, he will find his den. There's not a big difference. When snow comes, he finds his den is fine the way it was. But curling snow up, I just took the snow out. So curling up to sleep till, and instead of then, I put when. So curling up to sleep till when the spring returns with longer days. I've forgotten what that technique is called, but it's always nice if you can sometimes have a line that doesn't end in a full stop or the end of a statement right at the end of a poetic line, but one that winds on until the next line. It means that if you recite it or read it, the rhyme softens a bit and flows into the next line. So, when snow comes, he will find his den, curling up to sleep till when the spring returns with longer days, then back to endless foraging ways. I like the term endless hunger, so I thought it was nice to echo it with endless foraging. Finally, the last verse. As the cycles turn once back, the brown bear wanders more, always watchful, ever strong, content to roam all day long. That's not bad for a concluding rhyme. It's always good if the last verse, and especially the last line of the last verse, has something definitive to say. So in that verse, I haven't really changed much except as cycles turn and turn once more. So I've taken them all from the second line and then had to find something else. Our brown bear wanders as before. And repetition always does help to add to the rhythm of a rhyming verse poem. And since we're talking about going back and going back, I thought that was an appropriate place to put some repetition. And finally, I just changed that all day long, which was fine, but I preferred the whole day long because by then I checked up on the brown bear and discovered when they aren't hibernating, they just take short naps in the daytime. Otherwise, they're busy eating the whole day long, 24 hours, not just in the daytime. And so with Mohammed's picture, I decided that was really quite a nice science rhyme. And I hope sharing that gives you the idea of what you can do. And that I'll give you a hand if I can. So I'm going to close my share thing and find out if there's anybody got any questions. Now, how do we sort this bit out? Ooh.
I haven't seen any questions pop up yet, but I absolutely loved the changes that you made with that poem and how simple some of the turning the words around created such a wonderful change. So I think it's absolutely wonderful. I really, really hope that we have lots of students with us today that will give this a try. You've got a special extension to enable you to have some time to work on this. And even if you are going to do your own pet or discover a new animal, maybe you could look up. I love the idea of starting at the museums and looking for some of that really good, authentic science information, but maybe explore your backyard or your local park, or maybe your local museum and some new animals that they may have only just discovered. So there's so many wonderful opportunities, but this is your chance. So if you do have questions, please put them in the Q&A. For Celia to answer, and a lot of the information like the PDF and the email and those kinds of things we'll be sharing along with the recording. So if you do want to follow up and have a listen again, maybe even after you've started your poem, you might want to come back and listen to the recording to follow up on some of your ideas. And I'm going to give it a go as well. I'm really fascinated. I have recently moved to the central coast of New South Wales, And my backyard is now a bird bonanza. So every time I go outside, I see new different species of birds. I can hear them, I can see them. And I've watched them breeding and then their nests. So I think that might be something that I will write my poem about. But I will definitely get ChatGPT to help me as well. I think it's a really great place to start. It's definitely not the end, and I loved your ideas about going back and doing your science checks and doing rereading and editing it. I had an AI image creator, and I was looking for some beautiful watercolor pictures of some spiders for a children's book that I wrote. And they came out, and I thought, well, they're not too bad. And then I looked a little bit closer and I counted their legs. All four of these images that it created all had 10 legs. So, it's a pretty basic description of spiders, their number of legs. So it was a little bit of a surprise that they got that aspect incorrect. But that is why you've just got to always double check. And I want to also repeat what Celia was saying about the prompts. Sometimes the more detailed, the better. So if you did want to have a 4-verse or a 3-verse or a 5 or a 1, you could actually put that in your prompt as well about how long you want your poem to be. So I think that's another great opportunity. Now, Celia, we don't have any questions coming through. I think you've given such wonderful information that everyone is now just thinking and about their ideas of creating their poems. So is there something you want to finish off and share with the group?
I will, of course. I will take every opportunity to share a poem. So when Science Week gave us the topic of sustainable species sustainability, that's when I came up with my poem that's in that PDF, but it's called Zap, Crackle, Stop, because I'd recently read this information about bug zappers. So I'll leave you with this. It's a little bit preachy, maybe, but it's a poem worthy of being put out there, I think. Zap, crackle, stop. It sounds like a cracker each time a bug zapper electrocutes one of those insects. To protect our meat pies from picnicking flies, that zapper is nowhere near perfect. It's a haphazard thug, killing mostly good bugs, important for plant pollination. Plus millions of beetles who never hurt people. It's rather a sad situation. Their UV light glow won't attract mosquitoes. It's CO2 breath mozzies seek. So that gadget's no go. And for those in the know, it's best to use bug spray with DEET. Ah, I hope you enjoyed that. And I think we've about come to the end of my time, haven't we? Thank you very much, everybody. And thank you, Karen, for making this a possibility for me to share. And I look forward to receiving some poems. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for joining us. I absolutely think it's such a wonderful opportunity to do something creative for Science Week as well. So it's yeah, I think it's going to be absolutely fabulous, and hopefully everyone is thinking about what they can do and how they can write and create a poem for the Poetry Zoo program this year. So thank you so much for joining us, and again, thank you for joining us for our first session of SciFest 2024. And a big thank you to Inspiring Australia in New South Wales for allowing these, the possibility of these programs going ahead. So thank you all very, very much. And thank you for joining us. And a big thanks to Celia today.